And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey folks, today we're taking a look at a new expansion for Race for the Galaxy. And when Race for the Galaxy first came out, this was a game that I incredibly enjoyed. It's still my top 100 games, top 50 games. I love the game because it lets you use cards for various things. It's one of the first games that allowed you to use cards in different ways, in the sense that cards were resources, cards could be used as currency, cards would be able to be put on the board and give you special powers. It was really cool, and it had the space theme to it, and this came out when space theme was kind of anathema. There's a lot more of them now, and it was just this game that once you understood it, you played it very quickly. It's a game that, I just was listening the other day to a podcast talking about the game, and they said, oh, it's so lucky. And I wanted to say, oh, I challenge you to a battle then, because I don't believe there's very much luck in Race for the Galaxy at all. There's obviously luck, but there is definitely skilled play in this game. And after playing it many times, I don't know how many times I've played Race for the Galaxy, it just gives it such a great feeling to it. Race for the Galaxy it came out in 2007, and each following year, 8, 9, and 10, an expansion was released for it. These 3 expansions were known as the first expansion arc, and each of them was added together and added to the game. Then they said that the next expansion would be non-compatible with these, and it would start the next expansion arc, although apparently it is the whole arc. So you have 1, 2, and 3 expansions. You use any of those in the mixture, or you use this new expansion. The problem was this new expansion took a good while to come out. It came out 3 years later, although since it came out just before 2013 ended, it's essentially 4 years later. So we have this new expansion here, and that's Alien Artifacts. And so we're going to take a look at what this adds to the game. It adds some more cards and like a whole new module. I'll be back. First thing we're going to do is we're going to look at some of the new cards that come with this set. There's some new starting worlds. Now, notice here, this is the amount of new cards that come with this set here. You cannot use these with the previous 3 expansions. So if you have the previous 3 expansions like I do, you're going to be taking this many cards out of your deck. All right, that's not a huge deal. There's still this many cards left from the original game, so you'll mix these with these for one deck. Maybe there's a way to mix them, but there's no official way. They would never play test it together. So there's some new worlds here, some new starting worlds, and they're colored different colors so that you can deal everybody 1 blue and 1 red world each, and then they can pick which world they're going to use. And some of these are good. Sentient Robots is a nice world. I like the picture for one thing, but the way to put worlds out, it's kind of a nice generalized world. Alien Artifact Hunters, I really like this world because it gives you a jump on using the explore action and just get out there and get some extra cards. The Rebel Mutineers is another military kind of focused world. Starts with a blue resource and another good way to look at extra cards. And the Uplift Researchers, always nice to have an Uplift world. This is one of the more complicated starting worlds, I suppose, but not so bad. And then the Frontier Capital, I really enjoy this one. It's another military world. There's a few militaries here, and this gives you that card for technology. There's a lot of other cool cards in the set. Some of these cards have things that deal with the new orb part of this expansion. You can play with just the cards, and if you do so, you would ignore that. So even if this wasn't here, still this would be a useful thing to look at extra cards and would help get alien worlds out. Same thing here. Then there's new 6-point cards. These are always the cards, I think, that are kind of the focus of the game. Again, some of them have things to do with the expansion, but they're not a big deal. This still gives you points for Uplift Worlds. This one, oh, I love this one. It's so much easier to get alien worlds on the board and points for alien worlds. Here's kind of a generic one, although it's a great way to get points and draw extra cards during the technology phase. Then we have Imperial War Factory, and I really enjoy this one. The Wormhole Prospectors, which basically lets you flip a card, and if it's a regular world, you can put it out. Great. Otherwise, you add it to your hand. Can't be used for military cards, but this is still a pretty powerful, neat thing. It has a gambling aspect to it, and that's something I like. And there's also some worlds now that have this question mark, like this one's here is 2 points for each uplift world that you have. So this is a great little world. And they have some combinations. Here's Rebel Uplift World. You get a military for each uplift that you have. And there's more military worlds. And oh, look at this one. Love it. A 9/9. And it's a really cool looking card. Look at those alien sentinels. You'd think this one actually, with how cool it looks, you think it would give you some plus to your military. I guess though, if you are able to get this planet, you're kind of set for military at that point. And the Rebel Resistance. Here's another one that gives you points for each Rebel area that you have, another world. And so there's various different cards. This guy looks dorky, but he's cool, +2. There's various cards that will give you different abilities, and you know, there's nothing really new here that you have to try to figure out, except for the new orb rules. Most of the stuff is pretty basic, and if you're a fan of Race for the Galaxy, and why wouldn't you be for getting this expansion, this is probably my favorite new card. I really like the great variety that these give you. And there's lots of other new cards. I'm not going to show you every single new card, but they do different things and add various aspects to the game. The game also comes with another color, so if this is the only expansion, you can play with 5 players, although you should never play Race for the Galaxy with 5 players. It also comes with an extra card for each set, an extra Explore Orb card, and this is to use with the new Orb rules. If you play with the optional Orb rules, you'll place these cards in the middle of the table like this. They're actually 2 cards, and you place them on top of each other. And the way this game is going to be progressing is each player is going to have an Explorer going around inside the orb, and you can actually get 2 Explorers. One of the cards in the set gives you an extra one. And players are going to be going around trying to find alien artifacts. As the game progresses, and even at the very beginning, you're going to be adding new sections to the board by placing cards that are overlapping. And the game has some placement rules for this, which they're really convoluted. They're not, okay, I know people are like, they're not that convoluted, there's only 3 rules. Yeah, but it's really weird to explain to people. Basically, you have to cover up you have to attach it somehow. You can attach it just at the edge. But you have to have at least some new sections that are being added. You can't cover stuff, well, that makes sense. But the weird rule is that if you have an edge that's connecting with your edge of the new cards, which this one isn't doing, but let's say I did this here, if I'm covering up a spot, it has to be either just as difficult to get through, so I can cover a wall with a wall, but I can't, and I can cover up empty with a wall, but I can't cover up a wall with empty. And there's gates too, like you see this gate here, so I can cover up a gate with a wall, because a wall is worse than a gate, but I can't, anyway, so you can read the rules for that funness. When you put these in a station, many times they're going to show these section here, and you're going to draw from a pile of just different alien artifacts. There's 2 different colors, and you'll place one there. And what players are going to try to do is they're going to try to get their guys to these so that you can get these. If each of these has a special ability that you can use once per game, and they also have victory points. You can see that. And then there's also some cards that give you victory points for having more of those. Now, the orb actions are going to be taken anytime someone plays an Explore, whether it's the new Explore card or the previous Explore cards. When someone plays the new one, basically that's going to allow that person, first of all, to go to the front of the line here, because you're going to do these in order. And again, I'm showing a 5-player game, which should never be shown. So if you play orange, and you go to the front of the line, because you get to take your actions first. The person who played that card is going to take 3 actions, everyone else will take 2. Your actions can be to draw a card from the orb deck, which is separated into A's and B's and has a certain number of cards based on number of players. Also, when this deck runs out, that's another trigger to the end of the game. To place a card, add a new card to the area, or to move one of your guys 4 spaces. When you move them to adjacent spots. If you move onto a jump tube, that's that little blue cross there. If there happens to be another jump tube somewhere else, you can spend 1 to go to that jump tube. And when you get the different artifacts, you'll be able to add those in front of you. And again, they're worth points and let you do special things. And that's essentially what this expansion adds. It adds like this little spatial thing where people are placing cards in different ways. There's these gates, as I mentioned before. You'll notice there's a number on the gates. Here's a 3 and a 5. To get through those gates, you need to have military strength equal to or higher than that number. And specialized alien military strength also counts for that. So that's kind of how the orb game works. There's these little orb game summary cards for you because really there's quite a bit there. And there's a few other rules involving the orbs, but I'm just kind of giving you a basic overview. You can use this or not. Now I want to preface my review here again by saying I am a huge fan of Race for the Galaxy, and I was extremely excited to see this come out and play it. I've been looking forward to this for a while. I will tell you, though, that systematically, if you come to me and say, what are your least favorite expansions for games, I always think of the Race for the Galaxy expansions. Not because I think they're bad expansions, but because each Race for the Galaxy expansion that's come out thus far always included a whole chunk of stuff that I really didn't care about. Like one of them included this very complicated, very in-depth solo play rules. I didn't care about that, but it doubled the price of the expansion. Another one added blank cards to make your own stuff. I don't want those. Again, adding to the cost of the expansion. And then another one added missions and goals, and that was okay. And I could see that. And again, though, sometimes I just want more cards. So let's talk about the cards in here. They're great. Love these new cards. Kind of bummed that they don't work with the other cards, and I'm kind of thinking about trying it with the mix of all the cards together anyway. There's probably problems with that as it is. And I don't know that I'm going to constantly want to be saying, I'm going to use these cards, and I'm going to use these cards, and so we need to pull all these out and put all these in. That's kind of a pain in the neck. I don't want to go to all that effort to switch expansions in and out. But I think I think the new cards are good and fun, and playing with them gave lots of options. The orb, I hate it. I despise it. It is the worst new thing to be added to Race for the Galaxy ever. I would play the solitaire stuff before I played this. The cool thing about Race for the Galaxy, and the reason I almost always play Race for the Galaxy with only 2 or 3 people, is because you can just play cards and do different cool things. Race for the Galaxy is essentially a solitaire style game where you're doing your own thing. You're kind of watching what other people do, playing cards, trying to match other people, but it's quick. This game should be called Tortoise Race for the Galaxy. It just slows the game down to an crawl. Race for the Galaxy is a card game. This adds this board game where you go around and explore a space station. That sounds cool. I like going around and exploring space stations. If that was its whole game, let's do it. Why don't we add a little stock market game to Race for the Galaxy while we're at it? Or some dice off in it. That doesn't make sense. It doesn't fit, and this doesn't fit. I imagine that this expansion will be very popular amongst Race for the Galaxy fans because they have some new cards, and I'm with them. I like playing new cards and trying out new strategy, but I can't imagine that this orb will be used at all because many times Race for the Galaxy is one of those games that people are like, have you played before? And you say, oh no, and oh well, never mind, because they want to play with people who are good and can play quickly, because the game plays really well when everyone's just going shh. This is going to go slow it all the way down. I cannot imagine anyone playing it. And again, that adds so much. Most of the components in this expansion are for this whole orb section. Come on, Real Grande, let's just release some cards. That's all we want as Race for the Galaxy fans. I don't need new modules for the game. Just give me more cards. Alright, so my final recommendation is if you're a Race for the Galaxy expansion, get it. You know, you're going to want to use those new cards. I'm going to keep those new cards, and I guess by definition I'll keep the orb stuff too, but I don't know what I'm going to do now. Am I going to have to be constantly saying, okay, we're going to play Race for the Galaxy expansions 1, 2, and 3, or 4, your choice? Oh, you want to play the one that's not shuffled in? Hang on, let me pull all those out. It just seems like it's such a slog. So I don't really know what I'm going to do in this regard. But I'll tell you, high disappointment level on the orb thing. I thought it sounded cool when I read it, and then it just played out poorly, and there's so much, where am I going to put this card? And because of that, why can't we... It would have been just easier if you said, just place an orb on a card on a board. Boom! That would have really helped the game out a lot. Sped it up. But even then, because it happens every Explore phase, and because Explore phases happen in Race for the Galaxy all the time, slow. And I don't want to play Slog for the Galaxy. I want to play Race for the Galaxy. So, I guess this is more negative than positive. Although, again, if you're a fan, get it.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at coolstuffinc.com.
Shut the door.
There.